monster.
I tried to save him. That's all I'm going to say. I tried to save him. That's all I did.
Are you talking about me or you?
Hold on. I need to
I tried to
kill my.
It's
kill
the nice
my-
thing. The nice thing about this is we're going on like month 400, like the 175th time we've done this, and like Ray still has the YouTube volume on every time he flips on the YouTube.
That's because I use this computer for other things. I turn on the YouTube.
What other things? do
And
you
the
use
other
it
thing
for?
is that, first of all, I would like to point out, I am part of the talent.
I
not
would go
only
so
am
far
I
as to say you are the
producing-
talent.
Directing, doing the technician work, I'm also part of the talent.
You know, you're like the guy.
I'm going to
doing all
stand
the
up for
work.
myself. I'm standing up for myself, Pat.
You're the guy doing all the work, and Pat and I are just cashing checks. Like, we just show up and get a
See?
check and we
That's
cash it.
exactly what's going on here.
Dollar bills, baby.
Yeah.
Gentlemen,
Yes, sir.
in honor of baseball starting again, I would like to present you with my tribute.
Yes.
Oh,
Very
greatest
smart.
Non-White Sox hat
yeah.
in baseball history.
It's not even close, right?
No, it's the stack of cakes.
I mean, that's it unfortunately now is something I'd be careful wearing around just because it has some pretty strong gang connotations with the colors
Yes.
and the symbolism. But that is, I mean,
Well,
that's just
who is black and gold?
the Latin Kings.
See, I don't know my colors.
Do they wear the stack of pancakes hat though?
When it looks as good as that, yes, they do, Pat.
And I coupled that with the Mickey Mouse shirt today. So
That is gang. See, this is all gang related.
It's a good look.
Of course, I'll tell you, I had a video out of Lake County, and maybe I shouldn't say, but I will anyway. And on the video, the police officer is sitting on the side of the road, and a car drives by, and he's there with a ride along. So he's finished up with this stop, and he starts to follow the car. The car does nothing. It doesn't weave. It doesn't fail to do anything. It's driving down the road. One cop says to the other cop, "See that Bulls logo on the back there? You know what that is? That's a gang sign." Boop, on the lights went.
wow, I guess I was a huge
You know-
gangbanger back in the 90s.
Was this
You know what I said
was
at
this
that
the
point,
McHenry
Pat?
County Gang Intelligence Task Force by any chance?
Do you know what I said at that point, Pat?
That's all
guess
I have.
I guess I win this case. I don't even have to do a hearing on this one. I show this to the prosecutor, and it's good night. Thanks for playing.
My hat looks crooked. The P's in the middle, but it looks
Oh, the
crooked on
P's
the
in the
on the
middle.
screen.
The P's in the middle. Push it the opposite direction. There you go. Perfect.
See,
You
now
see
it
how
looks
I
straight.
did that?
It's,
I always
it's
have to
crooked on
do
my head.
that. I don't. There's something about Zoom when you're watching your own Zoom image. It's backwards from what you think it should be.
I know, but now it's crooked on my head.
No, it's not.
But it looks straight.
No, it looks perfectly straight.
I'm looking in the mirror. God, I am a handsome bastard, aren't I?
I wasn't just making it up. I was trying to give you. I was giving you truth.
Well, spent 2 days on the ball, or 2 games on the ball field today, boys. It did not go well for Phenom, Illinois.
And
Struggled defensively.
I was going to say, were we lacking in pitching or bats or gloves?
No, the guys pitched. We just had a couple, depending on what side of the field you're on, timely or untimely errors, and
That's
Hold
struggled-
on a second. What is your role in this team? Are you coach?
yeah, I'm one of the assistants.
And are you out at 1B or out at 3B when they're batting?
First base.
All right. Your first base style is like just keep running till the ball gets the infield, I take it?
I'm fairly loud. Yes.
But you're never like, ho, ho, ho.
No.
Like I would
not until-
imagine the closest you get to telling people not to keep going is turn and look, right? Turn and look is the closest you're going to get to stop or run through it.
I'm more about get back than I am stop. Go and see where the throw goes.
Exactly.
See what happens.
Do you remember?
Yeah.
Do you remember? I just want really quick before we get on to real stuff. I once was at a softball game that both you guys were there, and Ray had just lost a murder case. And for people, the 6 or 7
Again.
watching at home, Ray would show up to softball wearing blue jeans sometimes. And Ray's theory was if he hit the ball, he would literally just keep running. He would just keep running. And this is going to come as a shock to people watching, but we were probably the worst softball team in the history of softball. And I will never, ever forget the greatest line I ever heard at a softball game, which only a criminal defense attorney would ever say. We are down after like the 3rd inning, and we're coming off the field, and they had just scored run number 12, and we had won. And as a run into the dugout, Ray, who just lost a murder that day, says, "That's the 2nd time today it's been 12-1." Isn't that great?
That was that.
Ray, do you want to explain that
It's
joke
good
to the
times.
people at home?
I think that joke carries its own. It carries its own weight.
I mean, there's 12 people in a jury, and Ray was either the one or his client was the one. However you want to interpret that, right? It was 12 jurors against Ray or his client.
It was 12-1.
Oh, the good old days.
So we have just in local news. So we have a smattering of death threats
What?
from the we talked last week about the sentencing of AJ's mother, and apparently the consensus is that the 35 years was incorrect, and as a result, the judges received some death threats. Interestingly enough, I was watching. My wife loves to watch crime shows, which I don't enjoy, but I watch because my wife's watching them. There was a case on there, and I wish I was making this up. Husband and wife. Wife abuses a kid by he wets the bed and she throws him in the shower, beats him up, puts him to bed, and he dies. And the husband buries him in the backyard. I mean, this is the case. This is almost blow by blow, except for the news media, but blow by blow, it's the same sort of case. And the wife in that case got how many years?
35.
24. And the husband got 28.
Can we just backtrack? Because we never really followed up. Last week, we gave our predictions on AJ Friend.
And I gave a bad prediction. I'm a bad predictor.
Was anybody here pretty close, almost right on the money?
What Matt wants me to tell you is that Matt nailed it again. I don't know better how to explain that. Matt nails it almost to the day.
So Ray, when you're talking death threats,
and Pat was not incorrect because Pat didn't guess.
I did not.
When you're
talking, they're both right.
So when you're talking death threats, you are what we're talking about is everybody was saying she was going to get 60, which is the maximum, which was also a safe bet. And the judge gave her 35. And just before anybody goes nuts, she has to serve every minute of the 35. And people are like 35 minutes or if 35 years is crazy, it's a gift, it's whatever. So who's getting death threats at this point, Ray?
It's not, I mean, those are people who've never spent a second in incarceration.
Right.
Those are people who have no idea what it's going to be like for 35 years. You can't. How do you
know? It's like I said, it's the same people who, when this horrible thing happened to this child, they left their homes and rushed to the courthouse, all 15 of them, demanding justice for somebody who had already been killed by their mother.
And here's the thing that
who pled guilty.
Those protesters didn't understand a lot because some of their signs just didn't make sense, which is fine. I don't expect them to understand it. But when a judge sentences somebody there is 3 pages in the code about factors in aggravation, factors in mitigation, and things that are supposed to shape and guide the judge's reasoning. And in theory, it's not just a judge saying, this is what I feel like you should get. It's, I've considered stuff the statute tells me to consider. And the number one thing that everybody wants to be the guiding principle in AJ Friend is vengeance. And vengeance is not in there. It's
wait. If you looked at those 3 pages, certainly vengeance is somewhere categorized in there, right, Matt?
It's kind of couched in some ways, so you can get there.
Righteous indignation is that one of the sentencing factors?
In fact, I think the intent was to kind of root that stuff out of sentencing. So really the guiding factor most people wanted to follow is one that the code doesn't really say. The law, you know, when you've got one of these good law following judges that everybody claims they want but nobody really wants, and he follows the law, you end up with a non-max sentence on somebody who's never really had that kind of problem before, which is what you're supposed to do. So, I mean, I understand people being upset, but on the other hand, you know, how do you look at the code and really say the judge, you know, should have gone higher? I'm not sure. Look, from a practical standpoint, and a lot of people talk about this, he gave her a sentence that there's a very slight chance she gets out of prison at a very, very advanced age. So he hits all the buttons as far as what, in theory, the reasons we incarcerate people should be, which is like rehabilitation and stuff like that. All that can be accomplished. As a practical matter, people in prison don't live till they're 90. I mean, she would be late 70s at her release.
Right, she was 37, right? 35, so she's gonna be 72.
Yeah, so she's gonna be in her 70s if she gets out. I mean, how many people live that long in prison? It's not like they got great health care there. So I think it was when you look at the code, it was in line with what the code says should happen. And obviously it's not something that I'm going to tell you I didn't expect because I did. So, I mean,
even though it's not an option, if she had been ordered to be summarily executed in the parking lot at the courthouse, people would have said it didn't happen quick enough.
You know, my favorite.
Oh yeah, I think you're entirely right, Pat. This is one of those deals where no matter what you do, somebody is going to stand up and yell at you. How dare you? How dare you? You walk all the way up to the parking lot.
This is a judge I have tried 40 bazillion cases in front of. And there are times when I walk out of there and he disagreed with me. And there are times where I walk out of there and he's agreed with me. But he absolutely, like Matt says, he follows the law. And sometimes he doesn't like to do it.
And let's be honest too, if there's a judge in that courthouse where everybody agreed 60 was the number, he's not going to care what everybody else agrees to. If there's somebody in there who's just going to look at everybody and say, I don't care if 100 people think this, I'm going to look at this stuff and I'm going to be guided by what I think this stuff says. It's Judge Wilbrandt. And I'm not saying that in a bad way.
And that's why these guys are on the bench. Otherwise, they just go out and take a straw poll in the parking lot. Hey, what do you guys think? What do you guys think? 45, 50, 60? Well, it's 60. Everybody wants 60. No, you want a guy who's going to make the hard decisions. You want a guy who's going to follow the law. Yes, it's a terrible thing that happened.
And we should point out, Pat, that's why he's not somebody who has to be reelected every 4 years. That's why the circuit judge situation is set up where he gets elected and then every 10 years he goes through basically, not just him, but everybody, retention election, because they don't really want a judge to be directly subjected to the mob mentality, which is what the AJ Friend case was.
Well, I'm sorry I'm munching, guys. I'm a little hungry after being on the ball field. So
it's all right. It's all right.
I'm eating some Poppables. They're really good.
I got what's a Poppable?
So we broke a record today.
It's like a little air-filled potato chip.
Man, that looks disgusting.
They're fun to eat.
Okay.
No, they're very fun to eat.
They probably beat like chewing stuff at the ballpark, I'll bet, right? Popping those in the dugout would probably be like, you're probably not supposed to chew in front of kids these days.
Well, we were on turf field, so you couldn't have seeds, you couldn't have gum, you couldn't have anything.
So anyway, as I said, we broke a record today. We had 75,000 new cases, and we are back up to a daily of 1,000 deaths today. And it has been about a month and a half since we were at that level.
All right. So Governor Pritzker and the Census Cowboys sidekick, Hopalong Lori, they are not letting people come back from, or you have to quarantine if you come back from Kentucky, either of the Carolinas, Georgia, Florida.
Who did this?
Tennessee. Hopalong Lightfoot wants you to quarantine for 14 days if you come back from any of those states because they're going so high. They're going through the roof.
Right.
In the part of Illinois here that you're showing, Ray,
Right.
that seems to be Chicago area. I feel like Lori's backyard should be tended to a little bit better.
Do Florida's numbers look bad?
Oh, Florida and Texas and California are going to be roasting forever.
What do you mean by bad, Ray?
They're like Chernobyl. That's like 300 years of uninhabitable land in a lot of those states.
I think that their numbers look like exactly like what they expected to get in May when they were thumbing their nose at Chicago saying, you guys have a problem, not us, right? They have the numbers they planned for at this point. So I wouldn't call it bad. I'd call it their numbers are right in line with what they should have expected come May and June.
I don't know if they have the numbers that they planned for, but they certainly have the numbers the way they responded to it.
They got the numbers they played for, maybe not the numbers they planned for. Right?
You guys are terrible.
Everybody has a plan till they get hit in the mouth. Wasn't that the Mike Tyson quote? So
Hey,
they got
did you see
everybody has a plan to win a fight until they get.
Hey, Tyson's going to fight Roy Jones Jr. Did you see that?
Yeah, which would have been awesome 20 years ago or 30 years ago.
You know what? I don't care what that pay-per-view costs. I'm watching that.
I love boxing, man. I just hate how every big ticket in boxing lately has been rehashing like these people way past their prime. I mean, I know a lot of the talent's going into MMA now. I love boxing. I watched boxing religiously for a long time, but I know. I feel bad for Tyson. He's got to be doing this for money. I got to think Roy Jones doesn't need the money, but whatever, man.
I hope Roy Jones Jr. doesn't need the money. I know I've given him a lot of money in pay-per-views.
I gave Tyson a lot of money for pay-per-views, but I know it all went to Don King. So who knows?
Yep.
Sorry, Ray. We didn't mean to derail your law talk with fun talk.
No. As I said, I saw Tyson practicing, and he looked like lightning.
Yes.
He was snapping that practice gloves. Oh my gosh. I looked at that and I was like, what would it be like to be hit by that? And the guy is, obviously
he's working the practice mats, and then he does 2 body shots on his trainer. And his trainer's
pop.
He's got 6 inches of padding in front of him. The trainer's like, all right, I need a second.
Do you guys remember when Tyson was 18? So this is before boxing got just stupid with the walkout music. Which I don't know if you guys remember Prince Nassim Hamed, who was the one who'd come flying in on carpets and stuff in probably the late 90s. He's the one that kind of changed it. But Tyson was 18 years old, 19 years old. He'd come out, he'd take a towel, he'd cut a hole in it. He'd put a towel with a hole over his head, no robe, no nothing. He'd jog out, he'd pound people into the ground in like 2 rounds, and then he'd run out. And to me, that was the epitome of boxing, because like that's a guy who had nothing but a chip on his shoulder and a towel over his head, and he crushed people. But this guy is just a sad shadow of just a formerly proud boxer.
54 years old.
And I didn't realize Roy Jones was 51. I mean, Jones was throwing it down, I guess, well into his 40s then, right?
Yeah.
Man, that's impressive.
He's there he is, just telling you like it is right there.
Well, I mean, I think
looks like a fighter. He looks like a fighter.
Good for these guys. I'll get it. I'll watch it. But to me, it tells you what the sad state of affairs is in boxing right now.
I don't know, man. George Foreman did it.
Yeah, but Foreman was fighting dudes who were younger. I mean, Foreman was taking on formidable, maybe not totally in their prime, but after their prime guys.
Yeah, well, I mean, Foreman didn't come out and challenge for the heavyweight title when he was 50-some years old.
Yeah, Pat, have you ever watched the documentary When We Were Kings?
Yes.
I mean, I watched that. I drove to watch that in the theater when it came out. Ray, have you ever seen When We Were Kings? You got to watch
glorious.
it. it's a documentary about the Rumble in the Jungle that came out probably in the mid 90s. And it's got all this back scene footage. And I mean, it's incredible how George Foreman changed his attitude or his image after that. Like, he was as dark and as nasty and as built as Tyson was in his angry prime. I mean, he was, yeah, like, just, they hated the guy. And of course, in that, I mean, he was heavily favored in that fight and he ended up losing. But it's just, if you like sports movies, it's an incredible sports movie.
Ali Boumaier.
Ali Boumaier. Boumaier Ali. Go on, Ray. Back to your boring law talk.
Okay. I'm still pissed off about the death threats to Wilbrand. That makes me mad.
So where are these? I didn't read about this.
Well, the problem is
that
the thing that, and me and Matt were talking today about the presidential race, and the problem is that the people who make the decision to make a death threat, they're not the best, they're not the brightest. They're and then the other thing is that I'll tell you what, and this is my weird theory that'll get me death threats. If anybody ever stands up on the legislative floor and says, we need to stop children from being sexually abused, and they get really, really loud about it, I can tell you something about that guy. Might have a few skeletons in his closet. The person who argues very loudly about a thing, it's child porn, kids trafficking, whatever. The guy who yells the loudest, that guy is the guy. Well, it's the same thing with these people. They're like, she should be killed, whatever. I have a feeling it might hit kind of close to home is what the thing is. And it's a displaced anger thing.
What is amusing to me about, to be topical, not just this murder, the outrage we're seeing with the police and all this stuff, is that a lot of these people are bringing their outrage to a system and they have no context because they're not paying attention when they don't want to. And I'm not diminishing anybody's complaints. A lot of these complaints are valid. But what I'm saying is having greater context and paying attention to the system when nobody else is watching is going to let you really see what's going on. So on these big cases, people aren't going to be surprised. 35 years was obviously a defense win on AJ Friend. I obviously wasn't shocked. I wouldn't have been shocked at 60. The people who are outraged about the cops beating people, welcome to the struggle. Where have you been for 30 years? None of this is new. What's new is that it's on video, right? If you're outraged because you're seeing videos of cops beating people, but you weren't outraged 20 years ago or 30 years ago at Rodney King, or when people like us were saying some of these cops aren't acting right, you basically were discounting what everybody else was saying all that time. So it's kind of like some of this anger to me seems like if it would have been channeled in a little bit different direction and spread out a little more instead of kind of laser focused at these really popular moments, it could have been really productive. Instead, it's really easy to dismiss, which is kind of like what we're doing with Friend right now. And I don't know how to get people more interested and engaged. For whatever reason, people will love Live PD, and Dan Abrams' new dumb spinoff show about court is going to get great because he's making fun of lawyers. I'd love to watch that too. Those are the #1 rated shows on TV, but when it comes to actual real live court stuff, some of which is boring, but a lot of which isn't, people just don't want to be engaged. They want to kind of click it on and say, I can get outraged about this, but when business is back to normal, I don't care. And at the heart of all of this, like, that's the problem. The problem isn't that Judge Wilbrand didn't do what the lynch mob or what those people didn't think he did. The problem is that those people aren't there paying attention 99% of the time. And when they drop in once, it's easy to be like, who cares about it? That's the problem, the bigger problem with all of this. And you see people, it's nice to see these, I put on Twitter, it's awesome to see people energized about the system, but it's not easy to take them serious or look at them and say they're here to stay when they just haven't been around for all of the other people who've been beaten, or all the times people said this guy was beaten, but we don't have it on video. So I don't know. We're in weird times.
Sending a death threat today is kind of like robbing a bank. You're probably gonna get caught.
it's also, Pat, a bad move. I mean, there's not a lawyer out there anywhere that says that's a, you know, you want to scare Judge Wilbrandt, put money into his next retention election. If there's 50K advertising against a judge in a retention election, you're going to get their attention really fast. If you fire off some you know, anonymous crappy threat, like, nobody cares. So, you know, like a real campaign to get not just, you know, that judge, but any judge ousted at a retention election is going to get you your voice heard a lot better than some of this, you know, garbage that these keyboard warriors are going to send out. Whatever.
So he's doing a spinoff, a new live PD type show about lawyers.
Pat, I didn't want to tell you, man. I don't want to tell you. So
So
I turned it on. I turned on that channel, and there's a show called like Court Watcher or something, and it's clips of stuff that happens in court. And then I hear the wonderful sounds of Dan Abrams, who I've hated since the OJ trial because he is a fake lawyer who does fake lawyer stuff. And Abrams is kind of commentating stuff going on in court, but he's also like in his commentary saying, well, like the defense attorney must have thought this, or the like he's projecting his air of authority onto people's thoughts. So I was watching it and I'm like, oh, this is like, I had to turn it off because I'm like, who the hell are you? Anybody who's ever second guessed a defense attorney from the outside has no idea what factors go into what makes our decisions. Like, some of the times our decisions are made by taking a course of action that ensures our person doesn't talk because we know what they're going to say is going to hurt them. And sometimes you've just got to say outlandish, make crazy arguments because it's all you got or whatever. But he's like projecting this stuff on there, and I had to turn it off because I'm like, this is going to give me a heart attack. But if you get a chance to watch it, it is, yeah, court cam. That's what it is. It's going to be, I'm sure it's going to be huge. It's not live PD, but it's going to make you guys laugh, some of it.
Will they let us call in, please? Dear God, let us call in.
I don't know, man.
I'm going to go out on a limb and say Dan Abrams is one of those guys who's never lost a trial.
Yeah. And what I love about Dan Abrams is when you get a little salty about him on Twitter, all his fans step up and say like, well, he's a lawyer. He's a constitutional lawyer. And you're like, no, he's a Hollywood talking head who went to law school. That's what he is.
And when I say Dan Abrams has never lost a trial, that's probably like saying I've never had an unsuccessful brain surgery that I've performed.
Pat, I've
never lost a patient on the operating table.
Just like you, Pat, every large scale bank merger I've ever worked on went flawless. Flawless.
Oh God. Oh dear God, I gotta watch that.
It's all the court cams when somebody's mother gets killed and they go to court and try to beat the guy up. When people try to escape out of the courtroom, when judges go out of their mind, which we've already seen. I mean, we've seen 10 or 20 of those clips where they lose their mind. It's all those things with a little commentary, and then they'll bring the person, like there'll be a public defender standing in the jail doing a electronic court, and one of the inmates will attack her, and then they'll bring her in and say, what was it like to get attacked? And she'll say, well, I got knocked out, so I don't know, I don't really remember it. Oh, well, hey, thanks for doing your work, you know. So that's how court cam goes.
Yeah, and on that
I can't wait.
One of the things I love about public defenders and
That's like, give me the popcorn. Let's go.
Give me the popcorn.
Well, actually, to be honest with you, court cam was the one where I saw the girl get 24 and the guy get 28 on that parallel case.
And Ray, am I wrong about Dan Abrams kind of talking you through stuff and just guessing sometimes at what people are thinking or saying or whatever?
He's hard to listen to, but the funny part is that there's been a couple things that have been kind of interesting. Defendants who do a blind plea and then the judge pops them. Like a guy comes in and does a blind plea to a robbery, and in the area there had been 20 robberies. So the judge gives him 40 and the guy just loses his mind.
Right.
You know, Nobody could have seen that coming. You were holding people up. You were taking a gun and holding people up, and you got 40. Nobody could have guessed that. I hear Matt.
Max has decided he's going to mock me, and he's sitting in a chair across from me yelling at me.
Oh,
Used to it, kid. It only gets worse.
Yeah, and I think he just noticed there's no MILK in his bottle. So hopefully he does not object loudly.
he's going to
For
learn
the
how
record,
to spell so
Delta
fast.
Hotels has the smallest mini fridge. To call it mini this is a micro fridge.
The micro fridge.
Pat, that didn't sound like an endorsement.
The hotel's nice.
That sounded like an undorsement.
Well, we're gonna go to Act 2 in celebration of baseball. My second favorite non-White Sox. Fridge.
I was gonna say that Expos hat is the second greatest hat ever. I mean, that's just a classy hat. It's a shame that they tucked their tails between their legs and went to Montreal. Hi, Max, how you doing?
It's a great lid. Max, what's up, buddy?
Hey, Max.
Say hi.
Hey, buddy.
Say
How
hi
are
to Raymond.
you?
Max, you don't have to answer that question. You don't have to talk
We're
to
not the
either one of those
police,
guys.
buddy. You can talk to us.
You
he's
don't
a
have to talk to
defense.
either one of them.
He's a defense parent.
Yeah,
You
you
do
don't
not
have to talk to
talk
either
to
one of
them.
them. Okay, you don't have to talk to them. Say you want a lawyer, all right?
Max, you just tell Santa Claus what you want. You tell whichever Santa Claus you want what you want for Christmas.
And you're gonna get it, right? Say hi.
Yeah, right.
Can't miss. Can't miss.
I want a casting rod. I want a spinning rod. I want a
Ugh.
tackle box.
He gets it all, man. He gets it
Little
all.
John boat.
He needs, well, if there's one thing Matt Hajduk needs, it's another addition to the Armada.
Pat, I can't talk now because there's somebody right there, but I'll see you. Call me tomorrow. Things are afoot.
So elsewhere in the news,
That's why you're my hero.
as it turns out, there might be a scandal brewing with our king.
Okay, that I was. Oh my God, is he Teflon enough to skate on this? Because
Well,
that memo.
don't you always wonder? It's like, who was our old Speaker of the House? Hester. Hester.
State?
Oh,
No.
federal. Yeah.
Hester. So Hester gets these wild charges. They come out. Then they go away for 6 years, 5 years, 6 years. And then for some reason they flip on back and then they kill him. Okay. Or they don't kill him. They destroy his career and he's out of the whole thing. Sometimes you wonder with these super powerful people, what, I don't know. I don't know if this takes them down.
Look,
The thing, if this was a state investigation, he's skating away.
Right?
He's skating away. Did you
Does he
guys see?
skate if he's a Republican?
No. But if
George
he was a
Ryan
Republican,
didn't.
If he's a Republican, he wouldn't be in
No,
this.
no, I
party.
mean with Trump as the Republican president, would he skate more if he was a
I don't think Trump has anything to do with this. Don't you think that this guy, look, if you look at the number of people who have been popped in Chicago in the last 18, 24 months, I mean, Ed Burke and who was the other one? Not Gutierrez, but the one who had, yeah. So like they've been getting closer to this guy over the last, say, 24 months. And I got to think that this is an investigation that probably, I wouldn't be surprised if this investigation started 10 years ago. Nobody who knows anything about this guy is surprised by this. And as much as I hate to say it, I could put a circumstantial case against this guy just by telling you how many of his friends have either gone to prison or are facing charges himself.
Well, did you see the I don't know what they call it in federal court. I don't do any federal court stuff. The plea proffer or the plea memo. Where it
where
said,
they identify
They identify him as politician or individual A,
Yep.
elected Speaker of the House, and has held that position since. I mean, they all but called him Madigan, and they leveled him in that. And that, and it's one thing I try to explain to people: when the uncle comes knocking at your door, he got you.
Yeah, like
If Uncle
because they
Sam,
dumped-
if Uncle Sam's going to put that kind of stuff, I mean, they identified him by his position, by what he did, by his associates. If Uncle Sam's going to put that in a plea memo, I got to think they're not just going to say, they're not going to put that out there and say, never mind.
there's nobody who's done more to contribute to our state's financial ruin in the last 30 years than that guy has. I mean, you can blame, I know people just blame generally
I
the
didn't
Democrats.
realize you were a Republican, Matt.
I'm anti-Madigan, Ray. I don't think it has anything to do with Republican. I mean, when you look
You're
at,
just jealous that the guy runs the state.
okay,
Just jealous.
he's really good
Keep-
friends with, well, but look at this. He's really good friends with Ed Burke, who has been charged and whose wife is currently running our Supreme Court. His daughter was,
Wait. I'm sorry. Our
Or-
state Supreme Court is run by Ed Burke's wife?
yes,
That can't be. That
Ed
can't
Burke
be.
being an
Matt.
alderman of Chicago.
Matt, that can't be.
Madigan's daughter was the top investigating authority in the state for, I don't know what, like 12 years until
A long
2 years
time.
ago. So I mean, this guy, like Ray,
Did
we're
she
gonna
stop
talk about-
running though? She didn't get booted. She stopped running, right?
He did, but Ray, I want to talk about your favorite Bill Burke clip, which is him saying when Arnold Schwarzenegger got caught, why wouldn't Arnold Schwarzenegger think he could just get away with this? Because he's done everything he's wanted for 30 years. And that's the thing with Matt.
That guy's hit nothing but net for 30 years. Why wouldn't he think?
And
Why
it's
would
the
he think
same-
he could get away with it?
That's
It's
a,
the
that's a
same with
great
Madigan.
analogy. That's a great analogy. I mean, he was bound to clank one at one point, but I'm dying to see just how slick old King Michael is, man. Even Flintstone said, "Hey, if this is true, you got to go."
I
And
think
you know what Flintstone owes that guy.
now that they got Flintstone, who to be clear, you're talking about our Governor J.B. Pritzker.
Yeah.
They got Flintstone on the other side of the Blagojevich tapes, and Blagojevich went to prison. So if Pritzker is saying Madigan's got to go, I mean that should be all you. But look, I mean he's going to get what 4-6 years. He's going to be able to get out. Nobody's going to take any of the fortune he's amassed by being a real estate property tax attorney. And
That's
gonna
hard
be the-
work, folks. That's
Yeah,
hard.
yeah,
He's
it's
doing,
hard.
he's doing hard work for our local businesses in downtown Chicago. He's doing the hard work.
and just so everybody understands, Illinois had, I think I've explained this before, has a really quirky rule where the head of the committee on committees can kill a bill before it even gets assigned to committee if he doesn't think there's any merit to it. That guy is Michael Madigan, and it has been Michael Madigan going back on when the rule was originally passed after the contract with America and the Republicans took over the House for like 5 minutes. They changed the rule. Madigan came back. So that guy can kill bills before they're even debated in committee. What an incredibly, I mean, he's legally speaking more powerful than Pritzker is in the state. And nobody
And
has,
that's by statute. Forget about putting the clout on top of that.
yeah. And no, I was gonna say, nobody has spent more of our money on corruption and clout than Michael Madigan goes. And even if whoever replaces him is corrupt, they're not going to be
What
as
money
powerful
did
as this
he
guy is.
spend, Matt?
Is that a joke, Ray?
It's what I do. It's what I do.
I mean, let's just start with this. Illinois' pension laws, which allow public pensions to be doubled and tripled up. In fact, I would say your average government employee here is at, usually by the time they're done working, is at least 2 pensions, both public pensions.
Yeah.
They're, for some reason, Ray, people have been trying to change that law for 20 years. It has been unable to ever really get a vote.
If it was something the voters wanted to do, Matt, it would just simply get done.
That's true, Ray. It would be done. I apologize.
There's no way that one guy could block all of that legislation. That's
There's definitely-
literally impossible.
Here, just an example of how much power this guy wields in the midst of the Me Too movement, where everybody was just boom, boom, boom. They're picking off everybody. two longtime staffers came out. You remember this? Two longtime staffers came out and said we were, and I don't know if it was physical or verbal or what, but they were sexually harassed or maybe abused. I don't know. So I'm not going to say. There was an allegation against Mike Madigan and some of his office staffers, and that thing died after about 8 minutes. And that was right in the middle of the Me Too movement. That thing just went poof.
And I mean, that's the thing. Until recently, the people who would have been in charge of really looking into that was his daughter's office. And you got all your friends on the Illinois Supreme Court. So why wouldn't he's been in the zone for 30 years, Pat. Why wouldn't he think he could do this?
He's like Larry Bird in the 3-point contest. Just
that's exactly what it is. And not only that, he's Larry Bird in the 3-point contest where when he misses, they still put 3 points on the board. Like they're ringing those up.
3.
Yeah, they're
Three.
like, oh, he meant to
Three.
get it. Let's just score it. So
3.
whatever.
so yeah, I don't know. I'm it's Illinois. Nothing. I mean, that's how the state's been run since. I mean, Jesus, since I can remember. Dan Walker went to prison.
You think it was that bad with Jim Thompson?
Other states have just as much of a problem. Here is the GOP, the Republican Ohio House Speaker, and he was arrested in connection with a $60 million bribery scheme. And he was wearing a Carhartt t-shirt. I'd like to think if I stole $60 million, yeah, maybe I'd go with the Carhartt, right?
Right.
You got to fly under the radar,
They're a
kid.
little bit more expensive, but okay.
Can I tell you just in one question or two questions, I'm going to highlight the difference between Ohio and Illinois, or I'm going to ask your opinion. Ready? What do you think the opinion of the average Ohio voter was of that scandal? And if that had happened in Illinois, do you think people here would even notice?
I mean, how much? And I haven't. I mean, really, when ComEd took that plea, it was fairly outrageous. I haven't really heard too much about it since then. I mean, a little bit here and there, but that's got to be dominating the news in Ohio for weeks and weeks and weeks.
That's what I'm saying. I once had a conversation with somebody from Chicago. I think it was around the time that Chicago had like the 60 tons of blacktop that disappeared. I don't know if you guys remember that. And it turned out somebody at Streets and Sands was blacktopping driveways for side money. And had done his entire family's, houses blacktop. But somebody from Chicago said to me, like, look, there's always been corruption here and there's always going to be corruption. That's just kind of how it works. And I think that's the attitude that like these politicians are like, everybody's like, of course Madigan was being corrupt.
To
Like,
me,
of course he was.
It was
To
the
me,
worst
the
kept
difference-
secret in the country.
Right. But Pat, there's a large part of northeastern Illinois that's like, look, that's how Chicago politics works. We're not going to get too outraged about it. And you go somewhere where people are.
That's how stuff gets done around here. You want stuff done, you gotta get it done that way. That's how it's
Chicago
done
politics
around
is
here.
full contact. I'm not
Right.
okay with it, but I think there's
Stupid.
3 million people in Chicago or 7 million people in Cook County who are like, it's a shame he got caught.
Well,
Ohio,
and here-
60 million. 60 million. That's Ohio.
Come on, that's chump change,
Illinois,
man. You don't mess
Illinois,
around.
2.3 billion.
That's what I'm
like
saying.
one guy stole $60 and the other guy stole 2,300.
Yeah, I mean, really, in Chicago, nobody's going to even stop to pick up $60 million worth of bribes off the street. That's not worth your
They
time.
would not bend over to pick up
No.
that money.
No, so okay, leave it for the next guy. It's 60 million. What am I going to do with 60 million?
Like send that to the freshman congressman. That's
Right?
That's really worth it.
Yeah, that's. My mother, God rest her soul, hated Dan Walker, hated King Richard Daley I, hated those guys, absolutely hated them. And it would just infuriate her.
She hated them because they were criminals?
It's a long story. I'll tell you off the air, but
Okay.
she had reason to hate him, but it would drive her nuts. I never saw my mother happy when somebody went to prison. When Walker went to prison, I think that was the first time I ever saw her day drink. Like she
I'm
had a
sure-
cocktail when Walker went to prison.
I'm sure her beef with Daley goes back to his handling of the Democratic National Convention, right? She wasn't happy with his heavy-handed tactics and beating the people up in the park. Is that it?
He wasn't there to create disorder, Matt. He was there to preserve it.
Exactly.
Cut the guy some slack. My favorite Daleyism is there's nothing so wholesome as a fish. I can see a day when you can come down to the Chicago River, have not a bottle, a battle of beer, and catch a fish on your lunchtime. That's wholesome. That's what Chicago should be. You know, in the background is the Chicago River's just on fire like Lake Erie.
Right. It's still like I wouldn't eat a fish out of there.
Oh God. Nope. But yeah, I mean, you're right. It's just kind of like you hear that about Madigan and nobody's shocked, first of all, and nobody really cares. And I think Illinois is going to keep being this way. Now, what do you think happened to Flintstone's panties when he read that?
Well,
I bet you they puckered up a little bit.
I think he's hoping there's not more federal wiretaps out there, right?
Well,
he
he
did okay in the last one.
he dodged the Blago bullet. We'll see what happens here.
Yeah, but he was on the soft side of the Blago thing, you know, and he seemed too dumb to really be understanding what's going on.
Well, in my opinion, Blago was on the soft side of the Blago thing. He got hosed, and I hated Blagojevich, but he got screwed.
He did beat it the first time, didn't he?
Yeah.
You got this thing, Pat, and it's golden, and you don't just give that away. It's golden.
I don't think the golden conversation was with Pritzker.
No, it
No.
wasn't.
No, but Pritzker did follow it up with the AG, right? He was inquiring about the AG spot.
But if you listen to that, I don't think Pritzker inquires about the AG. I think Pritzker says at some point, like, he's considering or thinking, like he was dumb enough to come off like a mope, or he was smart enough to come off like a mope, however you want to put it.
Hey,
and I think
maybe he wasn't acting.
either way, like if you look at the prosecution of Blago, he was in a position where you might need him as a witness, right?
Yeah.
Funny.
What's up,
I got a
Max?
great idea. I got a great idea for you though. Okay. I'm sure you thought of this one, but Jesse White, even though I know you guys aren't like, bosom buddies or anything, it covers you on the African American thing. Correct.
Right. And then doesn't Blago bring up the
Well, it's going through it right now. It'll the next page will come up.
And look at the hair on both of those. It's just glorious. It's
It is
just
so
glorious.
good.
He's totally,
It's such a
he's
shame
totally
that Blago went gray in
Senate
prison.
material in a way that Emil Jones isn't. Okay. I mean, he's just, I don't know how to exactly say it, but Emil's a little bit more crass. Right. And that opens up the Secretary of State spot.
That's what it is.
Boom!
Which is this key spot that controls jobs, et cetera, and it would be a lot less pressure on you.
The Secretary of State
Just
thing,
trying to be helpful. That's our governor, just trying to be helpful.
the controlling job things was Blago's biggest political motivation. If you look at the people who talked about his rise to governor, and that was when he started as a state rep, all he wanted to do was be put in positions where he controlled X number of jobs, and then he would run around talking about, who had the most job control numbers. And Madigan, of course, being way ahead of everybody. But Blago had, by the time he became governor, amassed a certain number of jobs that he had direct control over, which is how Chicago patronage works.
Well, Madigan controls the jobs that control the jobs. So I'll give the devil his due. He's an amazing politician, Madigan.
He's an incredible criminal. He's an incredible criminal.
Not charged yet. Can't call him that yet, man. There's not even a presumption of innocence. I don't know that he'll get indicted. That's how confident I am in Mike Madigan.
Defense lawyer Pat has entered the chat.
And don't get me wrong, just like I said, Blago, I was outraged at the Blago verdict. I was outraged at his sentence.
I was.
I don't know that I'll be outraged. I don't know that I'll be outraged at Mike Madigan's sentence, but I just, it's so many years of him just skating.
Madigan has been charged. Okay.
He has not.
But here's why.
And I don't think he will.
You think they'll let him quit?
I
No,
think that I don't know.
I
don't
think
know what
before
they'll
they
do, but-
consider charging him,
Who is they? You guys know this better than me. I'm from Michigan.
Feds,
Who's making the decisions here?
the federal government.
the feds.
Who? Our AG for our area?
Yeah, I don't know who's run things, Mike Love or whoever's run things over there. I don't, but I think that before he gets charged, they're going to approach him and try to work out a deal. It's going to be if they can, we're indicting you tomorrow. We're putting through a plea. You're going to the Bureau of Prisons in 45 days for 3.5 years or whatever. I think that's the way that goes. And if he gets thick and they can't work anything out, then you end up seeing him get indicted and charged.
How old is Mike Madigan?
72.
I was gonna say he's got to be early.
Oh, so he's Walker material. He may bring a Walker into court. He may become frail real quick.
Well, I mean, that's your argument, right?
Pat, I didn't take advanced trial strategy. Which class do they tell you to bring the Walker?
Apparently in federal court, because they must hand those things out for when you register to be part of the federal trial bar. Here's a $1,000 coupon for a medical supply store. Pick it. You can either bring an oxygen tank or a walker, either one. So yeah, he could frail up pretty quick.
It didn't work for Hastert, by the way.
I don't think he was acting though. I think
No.
old Denny looked like he was pretty rough.
And as much as people hate it when I point this out, because it catches me a lot of hell on Twitter, Hastert did not go to prison for molesting boys. Hastert went to prison for structured bank transactions.
After he was sentenced for molesting boys, he was found guilty of the bank transactions.
That is exactly correct. Yeah, he was sentenced for something for which the statute of limitations had run, even though he was found guilty of a different crime. That's true.
Which brings us full circle back to the vengeance.
Isn't he out?
Yeah, he's out. He ended up getting like a medical release. I think he died, didn't he? I think he died, but he got out, I think, a little bit early because his condition had deteriorated. And again, another guy that like nobody's going to cry for his sentence, but somebody who was, people who want to cut corners and say he should have got more.
Is not dead.
Can I just tell you guys a little bit of a Denny Hastert trivia that you probably don't know?
Well,
Do you guys know? Do you guys know if anybody in this conversation lives in Hastert's district?
You do.
Yeah, you're damn right I do.
He didn't coach you in wrestling, did he?
No.
Okay.
Although Yorkville was.
I just for a second there, I thought we are going to hear the beginning of a very sad story.
Yorkville was in our conference my senior year in high school, so it's possible like I played basketball in front of the guy, or maybe he was at
They're Dukes.
track meets, but.
Is Yorkville the Dukes?
Yorkville's the Foxes. York is the Dukes. They're in Elmhurst.
Okay.
Yorkville is, another 35 minutes down the Fox River from here. So
Because that's how we measure distance in Illinois. How far it is on the Fox River.
trying to make it relational. I could say you take
It's 2 tree
41.
dams down the river.
Yeah, it is about 2 tree dams. Look, you take 41 to 71, it's right there.
It's 2 tree dams down the river.
It would be Batavia, North Aurora, Oswego, Yorkville. It's right there.
I haven't worn. I do not give this Expos hat enough play. I'm looking at myself and just mesmerized by the beauty of this Expos hat.
Pat, you can't put that hat on and think the Washington Nationals is a great idea, can you?
No.
No. What a sad state of affairs.
Speaking of Washington, kudos to the guy who bought up all the trademarks. They were discussing all the names and they didn't buy the trademarks. They were putting them out there, the Red Tails, which I think is a fairly cool name. That's a pretty cool name. Named after the African-American Army Air Corps squadron that just wrecked shop in World War II. That's a pretty cool name. Red Wolves, Warriors.
I like the Red Wolves. Red
Wolves is very cool. And they could keep some semblance of it. Just instead of feathers, it's a tail.
Yeah.
You can keep the same color. Well, so you guys know this, right?
Yeah, I heard this story. This is awesome.
when the Redskins were the Washington football team, I should say, which is how they're going to be referred to this season, the Washington football team, because they will not have their trademark battles figured out. Ray, this guy went in every name that was being kicked around: the Warriors, the Red Tails, the Red Wolves. There's 2 or 3 other ones. This guy, right quick, went to the trademark office, trademarked them all.
Yeah.
And then he said in the letter, I was going to voluntarily give it to him, but I gave him, like 14 minutes to figure out which one they wanted.
Right.
And after they didn't say, oh, we want this one. He's got them all locked up. So I don't know if it's going to be a court battle or what it's going to be, but this guy just hosed Dan Snyder and his crew.
Are you guys aware of the time an attorney did that with a domain name, Pat?
I know a guy who did that.
Yes.
Okay. I mean, I like to think like I pulled that move, but at the wrong time. Like I should have done it with the Redskins. Instead, I did it with a law firm and I got nothing out of it, but it was fun.
Yeah. So that guy's just absolutely hosed Dan Snyder's having a bad month. I think Dan Snyder would like to forget July of 2020.
Don't you think Dan Snyder's having a bad career as the owner of the Redskins? I mean, what has that guy done? Some terrible draft picks, spent a ton of money. If you remember a few years back, he was the first one to publicly say he was going to start charging people to show up at summer training. Do you remember this at training camp?
Like lodging and stuff?
What's that?
He was going to start charging them for their rooms and food.
No, he was going to start charging fans to attend their workout.
I thought you were talking about the players.
No, and this is like 20 years ago or whatever, when that was just like a crazy idea. I don't know if teams are probably doing it now, but he was.
I haven't been to a Bears camp in forever, but I know it was just, hey, drive up, pull up your lawn chair, whatever offensive, defensive group you want to watch, and you want to change it around.
Yeah, when they were in Platteville, it was like that. I'll be right back.
Yep. Okay. So yeah, Dan Snyder, and for the 1 or 2 people who don't know, Dan Snyder's also getting hit with a huge hostile work environment complaint.
Me too.
Yeah. Like to the point where, that they had a glass staircase in their administrative building where you could watch people walk up and look up.
The thing that I'm surprised, and I mean, it's sort of related to that, but I wonder, is there going to be 30 rock bands that get hit with some kind of thing? Right?
How so? What kind of thing?
Like when the rock band came to town and there were teenage girls running in the back, and then they would run out and there'd be a new batch that went in. You know
what? I don't know, man. I don't know.
Well,
you certainly haven't seen. I mean, it's happened in Hollywood, in
right?
Producers, directors, actors. Stand-up comedy is just getting hammered. Those guys are apparently just animals. But you really haven't seen it a hell of a lot in the music industry.
That's crazy because as I said, some people tell stories and I'm like, when is that shoe gonna drop? Me and Matt were talking about the election, and I even now think that Trump might pull it off, and
hey, you know how I know you're full of crap on that?
Matt doesn't think he will. But anyway,
I just want to tell somebody.
60 years, guys, 60 years.
Ray and I had an argument, and I'm like, look, these poll numbers are so crazy, and the battleground states have basically moved from Michigan, Florida, Wisconsin to being North Carolina, Texas. I mean, states you wouldn't think are going to be up to contest. And I told Ray that, I think that this is a foregone conclusion. And then Ray started arguing with me, saying he believes that Trump is going to win. And I just want to point out the reason I know Ray is not correct. The reason I know Ray is just muckraking, stirring the pot,
Why would you say such a thing?
I was present in the law library.
Uh-oh.
Another attorney who maybe is partially lost some faculties just started spouting some garbage and then shooting his mouth off about who's going to win the election. And another attorney stepped up and was like, I'll bet you a G. And the Trump guy was like, no, make it 100. And the attorney who threw the G out was like, I'm on it. And then Ray was like, can I get on some of that too? So I know that Ray has already put his money.
Sometimes we bet away from where we think things might go. Sometimes we pick the underdog.
I want to say two things.
Sometimes we
Hold
pick
on
the
a second.
underdog. Tell them we pick the underdog sometimes,
This
Pat.
happened at a point when we didn't even know that Biden was going to be the candidate. Like this might have been in January. It might have been in November. Number one. And number two, the betting window closed before I could get in on a third bet because it seemed like pretty easy money to me. So that's all. So Ray, as much as you want to tell us that you think Trump is going to win, I just want to get that out there and I'll let you have your conversation.
Now, I understand your thought process there, Matt. There is from time to time, never against our beloved Chicago Bears have I done it, but I have from time to time bet on that godforsaken green and gold team and then from the north. So you can sometimes bet.
Are you talking about the South Dakota Fighting Sioux?
Yes. When one of their guys, hooked up on a 4th and 20 against them, 4th and 25.
Yeah.
Ray, I think you were with me in the we were at the Venetian Sportsbook. That godforsaken team was playing the Eagles.
Yep.
Yeah. You don't have to tell anybody who watched that game knows exactly what you were talking about. Who was against.
4th and 25. Before that play, Ridgway looks at me and goes, "You can't lose, kid." I'm like, "John, shut up." No, it's in the bag.
That's the end of it right there.
Oh, I wanted to choke him. By the way, I love John Ridgway. John Ridgway is one of my favorite people. Oh God.
Can you name a president who's ever been this far behind in the polls in states that are a foregone conclusion typically and pulled it out? I'm not saying it's not going to get closer, but I'm saying you're not even hear people talking about Wisconsin. You're not hear people talk about Michigan. The poll today. Ray, what state was that? Was that Texas I sent you? I sent Ray a screenshot today of a poll that I think was Texas or it might have been Florida. And they had the president at 39%.
Florida.
Yeah, they had the president at 39%. They had his challenger at 49%. So
what was he chasing Hillary at? Where was he at with her?
I don't think it was ever double digits. I think it was more like 49, 46.
Florida, 51 Biden, 38 Trump.
51-38, Pat. And that's Florida. That's not Michigan. That's not.
So Kanye's pulling well down there then. Better than we thought.
Do you know somebody who applied to be the elector for Kanye?
Ray Flavin?
Yes, you do. I sent him a letter the day he filed. I said, "You're going to need an elector, and I'm happy you have my name, you have my address. Put me in."
All right, here and now I have been to, some would call it the heartland, some would call it rural America, some would call it other words. Our World Baseball Tour here. And based on my observations of this section of Americana, and it's included Tennessee. I've been back for way more than 14 days, so it's okay, Lori, settle down. Southern Illinois.
Chicago.
We are right now I'm coming to you live from beautiful Indianapolis. We're playing about a half hour away in Westfield, Indiana. None of the sections that I have been through, I think even know who Joe Biden is.
All right. First of all, I just want to point this out again. I have to anytime I talk about Indiana, I have to preface it with this. I was born in Indiana. Didn't live there. It was just the closest, but I was born in Indiana. So as a native Hoosier, I feel that I have some ability to say that Indiana is without a doubt the most screwed up state in the country.
Live in Illinois.
Matt,
How do you say that? How can you say
forgetting
that?
about
Well,
Florida.
but Indiana's politically an island. Look, it's the birthplace of the Klan. People think of the Klan as a Southern thing, and certainly the Klan's there. The birthplace of the Klan is Indiana. They have all kinds of political stuff on their billboards. They wear it on their sleeves, and you still cannot drive through that state without hearing John Cougar Mellencamp's old tired songs. So I would never take Indiana as a barometer for what anybody else anywhere in the country is going to do, except for maybe some parts of like the South or Utah.
Well, I'm not just taking them. I'm taking the whole Southern Midwest that I've seen. Now, don't get me wrong. I don't think Trump has a shot in hell of winning, and I think he's doing more and more every day to ensure his loss. I think Joe Biden's playing it exactly right, because Joe Biden is a blithering moron when he actually speaks.
I don't even know why he would be doing anything right now. If I was him, I would be doing nothing.
And part of why I was excited when Joe Biden was the nominee is I can't wait for the debates. They're going to be gloriously awkward and uncomfortable and just nonsensical. It's going to be awesome. It's going to be awesome. And we as a country should look at the debate between the two presidential candidates and say, my God, what have we done? But we won't. We won't. I think Trump's going to lose. I don't know. I think he could win if he would listen to somebody, anybody. I don't think Joe Biden.
He listens to his heart. He listens to his heart, Pat.
Isn't it like this election is the other side of the coin of the last election, which was, is this really the best? You know, I've said this before, that those Democratic debates that have 700 people on the stage, Biden, and I don't adhere to any political party. I vote for who I think is the better candidate, but Biden came off like, I mean, he just seems senile. He seems like he's not even sure what planet he's on sometime. And it's hard to think that, like, after the last 4 years, this is the dude that the party says, this is our guy. Like, you can't, there was literally nobody else out there you could sort of get behind as a party and be like, this is the dude. But I mean, I think there were a lot of people who were like, Trump's not going to be that bad, who either, this is what I told Ray, didn't want to vote for Hillary because they didn't like the hillbillies in the White House that we lived with for 8 years. I think those people are probably just either not going to vote for Trump or not vote this time. And I think last time it was like, well, he can't be that bad. And then it turns out he is. So
I think he's going to be, we'll never see it on TV. You'll never see it in the newspaper. You'll never see it. He's not going to get the slant on the media coverage that Trump's getting because he's not hated. He's perceived as harmless right now, but I do not for a second think Joe Biden is harmless. I think he could do as much or more damage to this country than as Donald Trump's done.
What? Okay, let's imagine that Trump loses. Does Trump go to prison?
for what?
Well, he's done a lot of things that are pretty self-dealy, and any one of those deals could blow up on him. He paid off that lady with campaign funds. He's not going to have the. He's not going to have the pardon. He's not going to have any protection. He doesn't have Trump doesn't have like a coalition. He doesn't have a group of people who are like, oh, hey, protect that guy. You know what I'm saying? He's going to be all on his own. And the problem is,
I think there's zero chance the Biden administration indicts him because what I think career politicians are more aware of than anybody is the legacy and structure of politics. And for a large part of it right now, it's, you know, here are kind of lines. And I think when you indict a former president, you are then going to set off a chain where every president for the next 30 years is going to get indicted on the way out if the
Don't you think?
wins.
don't
I
you
would agree
think?
with that.
But I think Biden's conscious of that, and I think Biden's going to say we lived through it, we're going to move on. Now, is New York State court or New York State prosecutors going to indict him? Maybe. But a lot of the stuff you're talking about, campaign stuff and all that federal stuff, Biden is going to just be like, nope, it's done. It's over. We're moving forward. We're not looking back. I guarantee you he says that in his inauguration speech.
And says, the subtitles will be, whoever follows me, you saw what I did there, right? You caught that?
Yeah,
you see
I mean,
that?
that's the thing, right? It's you scratch my back, I'll scratch yours. And they're like, the one thing that they don't want is for something to get that really nasty and turn into a blood feud, because it's just not going to end. It's that back and forth. So I don't, whether or not he should be indicted or could be indicted is another story. Politically speaking, I don't think he gets indicted in anything federal. Whether or not, New York does something over his taxes or whatever, that's possible. Ray, Ray does not seem satisfied with that prognostication.
No, as I said, I ask these questions because I like to hear what you have to say about them, and I think
a good example of what Matt's talking about and what I meant by, hey, did you guys see what I did there? Bill Clinton. 100% the Clintons did stuff that he could have been indicted for. And they just, fresh start, new beginning. Did you see what I did there?
And the next president was a guy from a political family who had a greater grasp of how things go historically and didn't want to play that game, right?
Yeah.
I mean, you didn't hear him whining about the Clintons for the next few years. You didn't hear people chanting, lock them up. It was like, we're moving on.
That is, the funny part is that I know that when George W. Bush was president, I was like a little surprised how dumb he was. But now that I look back, I want to take that back.
I think Bush was not bad when he stuck to the teleprompter. When he got off the teleprompter is when things were sort of like, ooh, which I'm not going to hold against the guy because thinking on your feet and responding is definitely something that isn't for everybody, and I don't think is a sign of intelligence. But it was kind of like, stick to your teleprompter and you're okay. I don't know that I called him. I would think he was dumb, but he definitely lived a pretty privileged, insulated life. But
but I think you can say that for, Nixon.
Of course.
I will not give my viewpoint on Nixon. But Nixon refused to delegate anything to anybody, and that was his downfall. Trump thinks he's the smartest guy who's ever sat in the White House. He refuses to delegate or listen to anybody on anything, and that's where the downfall is. And it's not a sign of being a bad president to delegate. Condoleezza Rice, I don't care what party she ran on, I would vote for that woman like that because she was brilliant. People listened to her because she knew what the hell she was talking about foreign affairs and national security. That doesn't mean that a president's dumb. You have to, I think, anytime you're a chief executive of anything, you have to be able to say, I want to surround myself with people who know more about what they do than I do.
But the writing on the wall for the current president was super early with that. If you remember, I think it might have been even before he was elected, there were reports getting leaked that he was basically refusing to sit in on the security briefings. And that's somebody who, forget delegating or allowing other people to do what other people do, was incoming saying, I don't want the benefit of any of the knowledge that was here before me. In my opinion, that is a sign of stupidity. Not being willing to just look at what other people are saying and sort out what you want to follow is ridiculous. The right thing to do would have been to take in those security briefings and say, I discount that, I don't trust this source, I'm going to change these people, rather than not showing up at the security briefings. But it's a whole nother story, and I guess we're going to return to normal probably soon enough, one way or another. Maybe not, but
Biden terrifies me as much as Trump does. We've been given the choice as American people to say, do you want to get kicked in the right nut or the left nut? Because it's coming. Pick your nut.
The amusing thing about Biden is he, if you look at what has, so, Trump is pretty to the right, and the Democratic Party seems to pretty swing even farther left. But then their candidate is a guy who's way more middle of the road and doesn't line up with most of their party on a lot of like what they think is key issues right now. So, he's wishy-washy on what they want to do in insurance. He seems wishy-washy or
He's
not
pretty
committed.
strong at touching little girls' heads.
And sniffing people. He's creepy.
And
He's got a
sniffing.
strong creep
He's
vibe.
very strong. He has some strong areas that I really think that you're glossing over.
But Ray, I think that is not going to be a change. I think that's something we're bringing in from the current administration, right? That's just a carryover trait.
Different area they were grabbed.
Yeah.
And nobody seems to have any concern about he's 77. He'll be 78 when he's inaugurated. If he's a two-termer, he'll be 86 years old when he leaves.
I just want to know, how did and I'm not super plugged into political careers, but living through the first Gulf War, or whatever you want to call it, how did Colin Powell just end up being pushed to the side in the last 20 years? Where did everybody sour on that guy? Because he seemed like for a while, a pretty well-respected guy who was being groomed to end up in the White House. And then I know he served in the cabinet of Bush and kind of got fired at some point. But
I think Colin Powell, while he served, he was a good soldier because that's what he was for the Republicans. I don't think Colin Powell was ever a Republican. I think the reason we never saw Colin Powell, his wife had a lot of, I don't know a lot, but she had some fairly serious mental health issues that she was dealing with.
Okay.
And I think, I can't pull anything up to prove it, but I was a huge Colin Powell fan. I loved Colin Powell. I thought he was dignified. I thought he was statesmanlike.
He seemed very kind of down to earth and relatable, which I think is kind of nice.
And you put him on an international stage, and there wasn't a person in the world who was going to push him around. I thought he would have made, from what I know of him. Now, maybe he wouldn't have been a good president, but I don't think his wife could have stood up to the stress. And I don't know that she could have stood up the way a presidential candidate's wife needs to stand up to the scrutiny of
that's all legitimate stuff. If you think you're going to put your family through hell, why would you do that, right? You've got to be, everybody in your family's got to be on board to do that job.
Yeah.
I have one last hard-hitting issue to get to, and then it'll be off to next Thursday. I guess the thing that's really, really important right now for all of us in Illinois is, should this guy dye his hair back or not?
No, you can't. You can't go back, dude. If that's just a fantastic, ridiculously poorly coiffed mane, and he should just keep it exactly as it is. Blago's now, he doesn't have the Elvis jet black hair anymore. Keep it.
I like to think when I go months without cutting my hair, which I do because I tend to trim it super short and let it grow out. I like to think on my best days that I have the hair Blago had. I don't think I do, but when I wake up in the morning, I'm like, oh, I got that Blago going today. People aren't going to love it, but they don't know how good it is. And now
remember when he was governor though, he had that even bigger lettuce leaf right in front.
It was awesome.
Awesome. Just amazing. Just amazing.
Gentlemen, you're not going to get paid any extra money for overtime. We've went a little bit over.
Bye-bye.
Everybody, we'll see you next week. Same time, same station. And I'm going to go ahead and wrap it up. Good night, everybody.
Say bye-bye, Matt.
Hey, guys.